So happy to be here. Thanks for having me. So if you've been attending the other sessions, you've heard a lot about cloud. And yeah, AI and analytics are kind of part of that trend. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So I'll try to do it in 15 minutes and we'll leave 5 minutes for a question and answer. That's a lot to cover for AI and analytics, but I think I can give a pretty good overview here. So we'll start with just who I am. So my name is Casey Johnson. I'm with ServiceNow, covering Department of Defense and Intel communities, currently focused on the Army, but I have plenty of experience working with data. And really, my main focus is to make data actionable so that governments can be smarter. All right, so why are we here? And if you haven't heard of JAC, right, it's the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center. It's really how we're going to take AI in the DoD over the next decade. But it comes down to decision making, right? And it comes down to data, what access you have to that data in decision making. And so this is a direct quote, right? To reduce risk and fielded forces and generate military advantage. I put a picture of a radar on there because for some folks, you never know who your audience is. But I think of AI and analytics just like radar, and even going all the way back to something like World War II, right? You now have the ability to see something out there. You don't know exactly what it is. It's coming back, right? And you can use that information and you can do nothing with it. You can just have a radar sitting in the room and somebody sees a ping and does nothing with it. Or you can have somebody manning that station and taking action, seeing that I need to alert the captain, that something's 200 yards out. We just don't know yet what it is. And that's kind of where we are with AI and analytics, right? We're getting information back. They're getting better every day. The radar got better every year, right? And so until now, you can actually identify exactly what kind of, sub it is or whatever we're looking out, if it's, air, sea, land. But it's really about, hey, we got this new tool, data's coming back, it's coming off the radar, which is, an analogy for, AI and analytics. And how are we going to use that? And how are we going to make that part of the mission and operationalize it? And it's important if you don't, and I put some key things down here. The data needs to be relevant, needs to be timely. You have to be able to trust the data. And then even if you do trust it, the way you build that trust is really to be able to validate that data and audit it in the future in case a decision went awry because of the data that you had, and figure out why. And then you can train on that and you can keep improving what you're getting back. So that's what we're looking at, right? We got this radar. So, but just to give context of where we are, right? The evolution of technology supporting the military, because the data lives here, right? So way back when, everything was on paper, physically stored in filing cabinets, difficult to correlate. From there, as many of you know, we went to mainframes. Then we had on-premise networks and data centers, and still to some extent have that. And now we're getting to the place, depending, if you're a civilian or DoD, it's changing a little bit. But we have the first clouds are becoming available, and we just had the presentation on how to procure those clouds. And now everything is really moving to cloud as a service, and because of that. I saw the presentation from Cloud Tamer earlier, right? We have to tame these clouds. Everything is, all the data is becoming there. Data is available in real time. AI algorithms are becoming standardized. So we don't need to train and have a custom solution for every single thing anymore, right? And they're starting to be built into platforms such as ServiceNow. So there are some use cases where I would say there's a spectrum of use cases for AI. And one of them is, something as simple as, doing some text analytics or predictive text analysis using AI. And then it gets way more complicated. For example, I saw the Corps of Engineers for the Army is now using drones to scan physical structures. And you can then use AI to maybe predict, when something could have a fail point. In the future. So there's a wide variety of problems that AI can solve. And right now we're kind of in the beginning. If you read all the current blogs from, the JAC is, we're collecting data and we're going to figure out the best way we can use that to impact our mission. But I realize when I talk to people, AI is still this kind of foreign concept, and I wanted to put a slide together that just gave a real clear, simple example, right? So this is one where we have a solved problem, kind of. It's an image classifier, right? It's an already trained algorithm. You literally send it an image from your computer or program or system, and this is what comes back. It comes back with, hey, it's an aircraft where it's a Boeing, and its score is 0.9982. So it's 99.8% sure that it's Boeing. But it's going to come back with, not just for Boeing, it's going to come back with the other items that it's trained on, right? So other type of aircraft. In this case, it's pretty sure it's not the Dornier, right? Because that is less than a percent chance that that's it. And that's it. That's the blip on the radar screen, right? It came back. Now, what do we do with it, right? And that's where I think for the DoD side, we're really looking to, and the DoD has really focused on, hey, we have to rapidly prototype and pilot solutions. We have to be ready to fail in order to succeed, right? Because we're going to have to try to figure out the right use cases, and that's this quote down here, for what's going to work and what is not going to work. Somebody gave an example of, hey, we could put a sensor in every single war fighter's boots, and we could sense how many steps they took, or if they were having more pressure on one or the other, and you could use AI to do all that, and you can. It's just, do you want to? Is that the right use case? And that one's probably, at this point, it's not there. And, for example, in your everyday life, if you just take a look at Netflix, Netflix uses AI to recommend to you what you're going to watch, because it saw what other people watched that you also watched. I have no problem with that. I think it's great. That's a perfect use case. And I've never yelled at Netflix, but I yell at my Alexa at least once a week, because it's a great use case. It just also, isn't quite there yet all the time, and it drives me crazy, So that's where, if we want to get into this rapid prototyping, where we don't have to do huge procurements, a lot of the military already has ServiceNow, and ServiceNow has machine learning built in. It has unsupervised and supervised algorithms that you can use. So you can think of it like, hey, we already have some data here, data that really can be used to take action, right? ServiceNow is the place where you go. It's not just the radar blip, 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 right? It's the place where you go to submit that ticket, to make a change, to put in a change request, to do all of those things. So with machine learning, there's lots of small examples that you can do, but it's a good way to, I think, pilot and probe what is possible, and then use this and actually take action. Not just, hey, we're going to go ahead and something simple is, a lot of ServiceNow just is the help desk, really, but it's quite a lot more than that, right? They make HR modules, they have IT operations modules. There are agencies using ServiceNow for investigations, right? Tracking, working with agents, tracking all the assets, right? Think of it as just, hey, we have data, we have a workflow, we need to take an action, we need to close it out. That's a lot of what the government does. And ServiceNow is really good at taking that data. So I can provide one quick example where machine learning was super helpful for an agency, and it's a simple example, which is responding back to Congress. So large agencies get lots of inquiries from Congress. They get phone calls, they get walk-ups, they get emails, and you better respond to Congress consistently. You can't give different numbers to different people. They don't like that. So ServiceNow, they had the whole tracking, congressional inquiry tracking system in ServiceNow. And even though, certain pieces of that information weren't together, they used AI to go and find like tickets to make sure and go see, hey, last time we responded to Senator Grassley, this is what we told him on, the opioid crisis or something like that. And that's really helped. And again, so it's taking data, helping them make the decision in real time. And then also, of course, in real time means you can actually go walk on the Hill with a laptop and show them the status of their inquiry. And, hey, why is this request taking so long? Well, we're pulling data from these 3 people and who's responsible, and we should have that to you by the end of the week. When you see the leaders on Congress see that their request is mobile and it's right there on the screen on the tablet, they just love it. So that's one of the examples I give down below. But so the main point that I'm trying to get across is we got a lot of data, we got AI, and we got analytics providing predictions for the future, or even recommending, hey, we think that's a Boeing. We think, it's 99% accurate. But we really have to operationalize it. You have to get it as part of your day-to-day work, how you can get smarter and better and more efficient. And that's really what ServiceNow can help offer. So the diagram you see on the right here, you can see we have a host set of apps. We have HR. We have the help desk. We can also very easily go to different sources of information. Maybe there's sensor data coming from ships. That's reporting. Something's running too hot. Something's running too cold. That can then require maintenance. So that's another good example, because when that maintenance comes in, it's a pretty, not all the time, right? Remedy is also used quite extensively, but you need to submit a ticket. You need to take action on that. And that's where I think right now we're at that place where there are really great use cases that we can go ahead and take AI and analytics and take action on them, and not just have them be part of something that was fun to do. And we can fail at it, and that's okay. And that's really what we're trying to get to. So I have one more federal use case I wanted to talk through here, which is the investigative identity resolution, which is something that comes through quite a lot, where you have the same person. A lot of times bad people are give you fake information. They lie. And they're in different systems, right? They're in different siloed systems. Identity resolution is a tough problem. And AI and analytics really help with that. They say, okay, we're pulling all this together. We worked with your SMEs to identify what things are more difficult to lie about, or how to correlate these identities together. And then it provides them, just like I showed with the Boeing plane. Hey, we think 98% of the time, these 2 people are actually the same person. But we're going to let that agent, that warfighter, make that decision. And then we're going to have an audit trail of that decision. But now, with those 2 pieces of data pulled together from the separate systems, you can start to really correlate other pieces of information together, and which can lead to future decisions that are important, that we really need to know. So I guess that was my example of how we're breaking down siloed information systems. Usually it's years and years. Hey, we're going to merge these together, and they probably still should be merged together, especially with all the cloud coming through. And providing so much more functionality. But you can still leverage AI in the meantime to really provide actionable information today as quickly as possible. Okay, so I think that was my last slide. So right. I was going to ask for questions. I think I'm right on time.
Yeah, thank you very much. And so a couple just kind of structural questions for you. Is the solutions you're talking about, the way ServiceNow approaches this, is it on-prem in most of these federal scenarios and then connecting to data sets that are in the cloud, or is it in its own FedRAMP cloud environment and connecting to the data wherever it lives?
Good multiple questions. But the answer is yes and yes. So yes, we've done AI on-prem. Yes, it's the ServiceNow GCC IL4 cloud is, I think everybody's migrating there, so it should be ready to use. And all the FedRAMP clouds already have the AI built in and available.
Okay, and I'm curious. You talked a little bit about a good silo busting example, but is as a general rule, are you seeing organizations trying to structure and ingest new data that, sort of from the ground up, thinking of your example of the Army drones or the potential boot sensors, Or is it about gathering and restructuring and connecting all that legacy data that's out there?
Yeah, that is. I guess the answer is it depends.
Yeah.
It depends how the data is stored. That is true, right? AI needs the data to be kind of in its raw state. That's where it has the most power. If it's working off aggregated data, it becomes more difficult. But yes, like I think I mentioned before, there are some problems where I use the drone example as one where, hey, that one might not best be suited for ServiceNow. That might be, hey, we need a whole team, we need a specialized team to be able to do this, but it's going to take a long time. So what I was trying to get to, what I'm trying to encourage the Army to get to, and I think everybody that I talk to is trying to get to, is let's get some quick wins or let's get some quick failures, but let's start trying.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have to be able to learn from our mistakes and figure out, and sometimes it's really even building those core competencies, and you start identifying people within the Army or within the Air Force. Hey, these guys, they did it, they're really into it, and you can build off of that. And of course always bringing in the right partners is critical. No one platform is going to solve it all. I'm only advocating that, hey, there are some problems where the tools are ready, and it's not going to take a huge contract that's going to award over a year to do it. It's there. We just have to try, or have it as part of your mission statement to go try.
Great. And a couple questions that came in about the sort of investigations use case.
Yeah.
One was just a question of, is DoD utilizing AI for cyber related investigations that you know of, if you can speak to
it? Not that I know of. Not that I could speak to either.
Okay. And then a more just sort of practical, less specific question, which is, can the retrieval of data from person-to-person apps like Slack, Messenger, that sort of thing, be set up to be on demand for these investigations to avoid privacy issues?
Be set up to be on demand. Yes, I've never had that requirement, but yeah, they could be on demand for privacy issues. And I guess even if you wanted it to make it increase privacy further, and I've gone into talks on ServiceNow privacy, which is really fantastic. You could even have it just as temporary, so it never gets it's just stored in memory, and then it goes away.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then you were talking about the different sort of more traditional roles that ServiceNow has been involved in, of help desk and HR modules and things like that. Are you seeing examples over the last few months, whether in DoD or elsewhere in government, of using AI to sort of understand the HR side of things in this new telework environment?
Ooh, I haven't heard that one yet. That's an interesting question. So no, that's interesting, but I haven't heard that yet. But yeah, you could use AI, of course, to traverse logs and see, kind of try to get a picture of digitally how active people are at home, and what affects their day. Even, you can even start bringing in weather data, for example.
Yeah, I know in other conversations we've had, agencies have talked about trying to understand more from an IT standpoint sometimes, of just where the bottlenecks are in their systems as they go from 5% telework to 95% telework, and
yeah,
but just trying to automate the analysis of that data to make smarter decisions. And it just seems like something that's going to be a growing problem for agencies to have to tackle.
Yeah, and just to close out, yeah, ServiceNow is great at that, right? So if you had a form that previously had to be signed in person and now it's stuck because everybody's at home, dissolving those forms and then having them digitally signed is something ServiceNow excels at.
Excellent. Well, and I think that's a good point. Good place to leave it, which is good because we are at time. But Casey, I think thanks for digging in more on the AI as something that people have touched on in passing all morning, and it's nice to kind of really sink our teeth into it.
Thank you for having me, everyone.